China just solved a problem that's currently paralyzing half of America's data center build-out. And it didn't do it with a chip. It did it with salt. Hi, I'm Abby Englewood, and this is the Sanity Project. Right now, somewhere in the Ningxia desert, there's a solar and wind farm wired directly into an AI data center. No public grid in between. No utility middleman. Just electrons moving from turbine to server rack in a straight line. That plant came online this year, according to a report from the South China Morning Post, and it's backed by a battery technology most Americans have, never even heard of, sodium ion. Chinese manufacturers are about to deploy sodium ion at a scale that should make Western energy planners very nervous. And I want to be clear about what this episode is not. This isn't a story about a cool new battery chemistry. I mean, it kind of is, but that's not the point. It's a story about infrastructure dominance, about a government building the whole road instead of picking a lane. Let's start with the battery because it's the part that makes everything else possible. For 15 years, the battery conversation has basically been a lithium conversation. Lithium-ion cells power your phone, your EV, and increasingly, the massive storage arrays that keep solar and wind power flowing after the sun sets. But lithium is a constrained resource. Geographically concentrated, geopolitically contested, priced accordingly. Sodium is none of those things. It's one of the most abundant elements on Earth. You can pull it out of seawater, basically. And this year, Chinese battery giant CATL pushed sodium ion past the threshold that used to be its weakness. According to reporting from Car News China, CATL's second-generation cells are hitting energy densities that support real EV range. They've cleared China's national safety standard for EV traction batteries, and they're headed into mass production this year. We're talking passenger cars, delivery trucks, battery swap stations, and grid-scale storage. All at once. First-generation sodium cells are already running 250,000 delivery vans on Chinese roads today. That's not a pilot program. That's a fleet. Here's why that matters more than the spec sheet suggests. Costs for these cells are already down near $70 per kilowatt hour, with industry projections pointing toward $40 within the next year. That's happening as new dedicated factories ramp up. A 30 gigawatt hour plant from CATL, another 30 gigawatt hour plant from BYD. That is a battery cheap enough, safe enough, and abundant enough to deploy at the scale of a national grid, not just a car fleet. And that's exactly what's happening. China's 2026 government work report explicitly pledged tighter integration between its computing infrastructure and its power supply networks. Translation: the country building the most data centers on Earth won't let them compete with households for electrons. Under a national action plan, new data centers inside China's 8 designated computing hubs are now required to source at least 80% of their power from renewable energy. That's not a suggestion, that's policy. The Ningxia project I mentioned earlier, 500 megawatts of solar today, with 1.5 gigawatts of wind coming online by year's end, per that SCMP reporting, is the prototype. CGTN covered the same site when its AI data center went fully green this summer. The stated goal is Renewables supplying 4/5 of the entire data center sector's power by 2030, up from just 11% 3 years ago. That's a genuinely steep curve. Think about what that requires logistically. You need generation. You need storage that can smooth out solar and wind when the sun isn't shining, which is where the sodium-ion batteries come back in. They're cheap enough to bolt onto a wind farm without cannibalizing the lithium supply the EV industry still needs. And you need the political will to route all of it to one strategic sector, ahead of everyone else's electricity bill. China has now demonstrated all three on the same timeline in the same region. So let's look across the Pacific because this is where the story stops being about China and starts being about the US. American data center growth is currently getting strangled by the exact problem China just engineered its way around: power. Roughly 12 gigawatts of new US data center capacity is expected online this year, but only about a third of it is actually under construction. Tom's Hardware reported on this directly. Half of planned American data center builds have been delayed or canceled outright. And a meaningful chunk of that delay traces back to shortages of power infrastructure and components. Transformers, switchgear, grid hardware, bottlenecked by supply chains running through, you guessed it, China. That's the part I want you to sit with for a second. It's not just that China is outbuilding the US on clean power for compute. It's that the components America needs to fix its own grid bottleneck are frequently sourced from the same country currently prioritizing its own build-out. According to an analysis published by GovFacts, China supplies 14 of the 33 critical minerals the United States depends on most. Gallium, tungsten, rare earths, the exact materials that show up in grid hardware and battery systems. Copper, the literal wiring of the entire AI power build-out, hit a record price this year. Driven partly by the sheer scale of demand this sector is creating worldwide. So here's the strategic picture, stripped of the tech headline framing. This isn't a battery story or an AI story. It's a vertical integration story. A state actor building generation, storage, and compute as one locked-together system on a national timeline. Meanwhile, a rival economy tries to build the same stack piecemeal through private markets, partly using components sourced from the country it's competing with. If you spend any time thinking about supply chains and security the way I do, that dependency is the real headline. If this kind of breakdown, the stuff sitting underneath the headlines, is useful to you, this is exactly what we dig into every week over at the Sanity Project. We've got a deeper written piece on the supply chain angle up on our Substack right now. Honestly, if you want the full picture instead of just the 8-minute version, that's where to find it. Just search the Sanity Project on Substack or head to thesanity.org and subscribe while you're there. It's not really about whether sodium-ion batteries are impressive. It's about who controls the choke points when the thing being built is the backbone of the next decade's economy and, frankly, its national security infrastructure. Energy independence isn't just about drilling more or building more solar panels domestically. It's about whether the hardware, the minerals, and the manufacturing capacity to do either of those things sits inside your own borders or inside a rival's. Washington has started responding, There's a push now toward a critical minerals trading bloc with partners like Japan and the European Union, aimed at reducing exposure to China-controlled processing. That's a reasonable first move. Whether it's fast enough is a genuinely open question, and it's one worth watching over the next 18 months because this build-out doesn't wait for policy to catch up. So where does this leave North America? Realistically, playing catch-up on two fronts at once. Needing to build clean generation fast enough to power an AI economy, while securing the mineral and component supply chains that make it possible, without leaning on the same country it's trying to compete against. China didn't just get lucky with a battery breakthrough. It built the policy, the manufacturing capacity, and the grid architecture to use that breakthrough strategically, years before its competitors had to reckon with the bill. That's the part that should stick with you longer than any headline about a new battery chemistry. The chemistry is just the tool. The infrastructure is the strategy. And right now, one country is building it faster, cheaper, and more deliberately than the other. Before you go, if you want to keep thinking critically about stories like this one, instead of just scrolling past the headline version, come find us at the Sanity Project on Substack. That's thesanity.org. We publish the analysis that doesn't fit in a soundbite, and honestly, that's where conversations like this one actually go somewhere. Thanks for listening. I'm Abby Englewood, and I'll talk to you next time.
If you want more facts and less fear, hit subscribe. Check out the next breakdown wherever you're listening or watching. Stay sane, Canada.